Three, two, one.
You ready?
You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. We are the Real Pineapple, and this is Hunter, and I'm here with Colin. Colin, how are you, sir?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. We're actually talking about a good movie and not Life of the Party. And I'm here with Scott. Scott, how are you?
Fantastic. Good to be with the boys.
So I will say we're talking about Deadpool 2. I'm gonna say when I left the theater, I'm very curious to hear what you guys thought of this. That's because I honestly don't. We haven't, as we kind of mentioned here, we don't talk really often about our thoughts on the movie before we record. I fully admit I broke that yesterday because I texted Colin and said I might walk out of Life of the Party. I almost had to talk myself into not walking out. But we haven't talked about what we thought about Deadpool. So as the resident nerd, have read a decent amount of Deadpool once I got older. Definitely wasn't allowed to read him when I was a kid for some reason. But Deadpool, though, has become actually one of my favorite characters. He's always good for a laugh, and you just want to read something that's gonna, make you chuckle, entertain. Deadpool's great for that. I will say, going into this, I was worried about it because the original Deadpool we all love. I mean, it was kind of that lightning in the bottle sort of thing where everything just came together perfectly, and I worried if they'd be able to recapture that, if that makes sense. What I will say is that this isn't like Ghostbusters 2 for me, where I think it's still good, but it's not, as great as the first one. I think I would compare this more maybe to John Wick Chapter 2 is kind of how I'm going to compare this. Colin, kind of your thoughts going into this.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Deadpool 1. When that movie came out, I didn't know what to think. It was I knew it was going to be funny because Ryan Reynolds was in it, the trailers, the marketing that they did behind it, they made it look, obviously very... it wasn't going to take itself seriously. It was going to do right to the Deadpool character where he was going to be making fun of himself, breaking the fourth wall, doing all that good stuff. And like you said, yeah, they caught lightning in a bottle. It was awesome. I think I had it as like my number 2 movie on my top 10 that year. It was really high. Yeah, I loved it. I really, really loved Deadpool. So yeah, when you love something that much and you have something that comes out of nowhere, you weren't expecting it to be that good, and you ended up loving it that much, like you said, you can be hesitant to think that, a second one can live up to that. One thing that I think this movie had going for it was that it came out right away. So this is only 2 years removed from the first one. Right after the success of the first one, they're like, let's get after it. Let's make the second one. But yeah, I was a little hesitant that they wouldn't be able to pull it off. Scott, what were you thinking about this movie?
Definitely, as is so many movies, trying to do a sequel is always going to be more challenging, especially when the first one was a hit. That expectation is always going to be there, and I think I was with both of you guys. Is definitely hesitant and hopeful because that core character is going to be the same. You hope, but through trailers and stuff, you can kind of tell it's going to be basically the same Wade Wilson as it was in the previous one, played by Ryan Reynolds, who I might argue that this is some of his best work. His most enjoyable work for me, because he obviously has long history of rom-coms, and not to say that it doesn't have good ones, but this is for me his most enjoyable when he's at his snarkiest, and he plays his character so well.
Yeah, he does.
and just so completely full of himself and so believable. But yeah, going into it hesitant, kind of almost prepared for it to not be as good in certain ways, because like Colin was saying, it's the first one was new, and you got kind of I personally, I'm a fan of origin stories, so I liked seeing where he came from, being less familiar with his character than maybe you guys, but his whole persona was super enjoyable and just very hopeful that would carry over, and even if the plot wasn't completely there, that you would still have that to fall back on.
So I'm gonna just throw it out there. I did not like this as much as the first one, and I'm gonna be honest. I'm still fighting my grade as we kind of record this. So it'll be interesting to hear how you bros kind of either sway me or solidify what I kind of think I'm gonna give this. So full spoilers for this, by the way. I assume you should have seen it by now. But anyway, so Deadpool 2, it basically starts off with him just going international, basically, and just like fucking people up, which was a great montage to start off the movie with, by the way. That made me
get
really
some good fan service, just like
oh yeah,
see some Deadpool fucking everybody up, very graphically.
Yeah, that is the thing I will say, man. This lady came in with her, I don't know if it was maybe her kid or like her nephew. But this kid couldn't have been older than 10, and I was just like, why are you bringing your child to Deadpool?
Yeah, this is a hard R.
Yeah, the thing that made me laugh really hard about going into this is that these guys, these three bros, like clearly in high school, go and trying to see Deadpool, and the guy, like, they get the one ticket person who's like, are you 18 or accompanied by parent?
Oh,
and
come on.
I mean, it was such a dick move on the guy. Like, I mean, they're probably 16, 17. I'm like, they're right there. But there's like, nope, can't see Deadpool. I almost was like, hey, they're actually with me. I was so close to doing it. Like, these are my kids, motherfucker. Yeah, these are my kids, motherfucker. Like,
they would have loved you.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, this Hunter guy, he's cool. But I laughed really hard. But anyways, so yeah, it started off really violent, and he, of course, goes home to, oh god, what is this girl's name? She's it's Monica. I can never remember how you say her last name.
Oh, I don't know. Character's Vanessa.
Vanessa.
Yeah, Vanessa. Thank you. Who is? Oh man, she is not bad to look at, and I will say the movie kind of off the bat. The fact that it killed her maybe 5 minutes in, I went, I don't love that decision, to be totally honest with you. Am I alone in this, or
I didn't mind it actually?
Yeah, it was a twist, and he even kind of comments on that, it's one of those movies where you see the end result and then build your way to that throughout the entire movie. But the way that they connected it throughout, I did enjoy. She wasn't completely lost in the plot, but you felt like in the first one that was his real motivation, and like that was the driving force, and it didn't seem like that. Maybe there's a little bit of that loss in this one.
Yeah.
Because you knew she was dead the entire time, and like she got killed real early. So that as far as that kind of motivation goes, and character development, yeah, I could see why you might be turned off by that, Hunter.
Yeah, I will say what did kind of help is that it goes into the opening credits that are just total Bond spoof style, and that had me laughing.
So great.
Oh my god, that was like the opening credits sequence was brilliant.
I legitimately really like that song too by Celine Dion.
Yeah, I will be the first one. I totally added this to my Spotify. I was listening to it. It's a really good song. I don't know. Okay. But yeah, there's like chimichangas and like unicorns and like the bullet like cuts through goes through his suit and like zooms in like it did for Skyfall. Like it's very much a sequence from Skyfall. I went, oh my god, this is fucking hilarious. And it takes a shot at the new director, who of course did John Wick, and it said, from the guy who killed John Wick's dog. I was like, damn. I was like, that's fucked up. That's funny.
But that sequence too, though, like right when it happens, it does kind of like your reaction that you were talking about. It's just like, wait, did they just kill her? Like, they acknowledge like the very sudden plot twist, like how crazy it was.
Yeah.
He's constantly doing, that is like Deadpool. Hunter was explaining to me. It's like that's him narrating this thing is like half of the fun of this movie. And if something does like that, like something like that happens, or like there's foreshadowing, and there's even a part where he's like, he kind of like, I don't even know if he leans in or whatever he does to let the audience know, like, we're foreshadowing here, and like it. That's what I really enjoy about it. Even if they do throw in some plot twists like that, it's like he's there to jump in. And so you can correct me if I'm wrong here. Was Ryan Reynolds a writer on the first one?
I believe he was. Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Okay. Because I saw him as the writer on this one and producer on this one. I'm not sure if that was the same capacity.
Correct. Yeah, it was. The thing about Ryan Reynolds, man, he clearly loves his character, and I think people forget he fought for, I believe it was 8 years to get that first Deadpool movie made, and then of course he did Game Busters, and this one, while it fell short, it made $125 million this opening weekend and opened up to $301 million. Internationally to total. So Deadpool is off to a great start. This will make probably 500, 600 mil. This will make 600 mil probably easy. And I'm sure the budget on this wasn't very high, so I'm sure they're just like, oh yeah, we're totally okay with that. So kind of delving more into the plot, it's about him protecting this kid, basically, and the kid kind of like trying to keep the kid from going, basically turning into a supervillain, essentially. I think the reason I compare this from John Wick to John Wick Chapter 2 is because I think John Wick Chapter 2, what's interesting about it is that it's still a very simple plot, but it does kind of beef up the narrative a little bit, but it's still simple to follow. I just kind of found like this was just kind of complex with its plot when it didn't need to be. It just didn't seem very straightforward. Am I kind of alone here?
What was complex about it?
I just thought the way it was jumping back and forth between the kid and then like him forming this team. Maybe complex isn't the right word. I would say unfocused. I think the middle part of the movie kind of dragged a little bit, honestly. So,
the only thing that I might agree with you, I think Cable's introduction was a bit sudden. Maybe.
Yeah.
He kind of just enters this movie. With not really a lot of warning, but I would disagree with you. I liked. I don't know. I don't think you necessarily disliked the character, but I liked the kid in this, Russell, and he was in another movie that I liked, Hunt for the Wilder People, which was kind of a cute movie, but his character is this like overweight mutant who has like fire abilities basically, and he ends up with Wade Wilson in this prison essentially, and there's a gag throughout that he's like trying to shank people with his pen, and that I thought was really funny
from his butt.
He sneaks it in his butt, and like it's I thought it was like pretty charming, but I would say that's unlike Deadpool, though, to kind of show that kind of kind of have the gooey center, like we all want to believe that and want that, and I think in the last one he obviously has a soft spot for the girl that he loves, but he kind of just has a general disdain for everyone.
Yeah.
And it didn't really, I think there's kind of a chink in his armor through this kid, and I don't necessarily think it was a bad thing, but I think they deviated a little bit, maybe to widen their audience a bit. But I don't know. I liked his character personally. What did you think, Colin?
Talking about Deadpool's character specifically. Russell. So
and how he kind of fit into this.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting that was the direction that they went. So like you said, so he loses his girlfriend at the start, and then at that point I was pretty intrigued. I was like, so where do you go from here? He tries to kill himself. He's suicidal. He has no purpose to live anymore. He gets picked up by the two X-Men that they can afford, which they
right,
which was a great joke.
Yeah, which they continue that joke, and I think to like emphasize why I love this movie and I loved the first movie is that as the plot just goes along. I would agree that the plot is not as strong as the first one. The origin story is a better story. The love story with the girl is a better story. The plot's just better in the first one. But the reason I love this movie is that just as the plot goes along, it's just filled with just like throwing shade, breaking the fourth wall, jab here. And all the I was laughing the whole time.
I was too.
So, but yeah, as far as the kid's character go, I didn't hate him. I thought he was all right. He wasn't really that funny. He was just kind of like a piece of the puzzle. He was there to bring on some jokes with Deadpool. And yeah, as he was. As they come to be put into the same cell in the prison and the plot's developing, you're finding out that Cable has come back in time, to stop him from growing older and ruining everything, very Terminator-esque. And, Deadpool makes the joke at one point yelling John Connor at him.
Which had me laughing.
Yeah. So they're acknowledging everything they're doing. They're like, yeah, this plot point's stolen from this. This plot point's from this. We were just talking about Life of the Party. And before I throw it back to you, Hunter, just the one thing that as the plot's moving along, in Life of the Party, that plot is fucking horrible. That plot's just absolutely terrible. But it's each scene is set up to be a showcase for Melissa McCarthy, and obviously that fails horribly. But in this movie, every scene as the plot's playing out, it's just a showcase. I mean, Ryan Reynolds is commanding the scene as Deadpool in every single scene, and he's hilarious. Scott, you mentioned you thought this is some of his best work. I would be inclined to agree. Because, yeah. He just has me rolling the whole time. All the jokes, the writing, everything that he's doing, it's just all there for Ryan Reynolds, and I think he just shines. What are your thoughts, Hunter?
No, so that is the thing, man. This movie is a labor of love. Ryan Reynolds clearly wouldn't have done this if he didn't think they could at least get in the same ballpark. And like I said, while I don't like this as much as the first one, man, it had me laughing. The joke that had me dying that you referred to, pardon me, Colin, were you talking about it? Yeah, I know, pardon me, yeah, I'm drinking my Mike's Hard over here.
That was hot.
Thank you. But where he talks about the two X-Men they get forward, they immediately cut to a visual gag of Cyclops, Professor X,
yeah.
Beast, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah,
and
that was
great.
I
was like.
He's like, where the fuck is everybody? These assholes. No one is ever around, and they just close the door.
Yeah, they're like, don't let them know we're here.
Which I was dying because it's so true. He's like, no one else is ever in this mansion, and then it cuts to the actual core X-Men. They went, oh, that's great. Okay,
that's one of the best things I love about this movie. They always acknowledge every plot hole, any plot hole or any little inconsistency you can think of. They usually know about it, and they make fun of it before you can make fun of it in your mind,
and even any device too, just any regular movie device that they're using through a superhero movie, he stops and make references of it. The fact that I'm sure we're gonna get to this, but there's a point when part of this movie has to do with traveling in time, obviously, because that's what Josh Brolin's character Cable is attached to, and so one of the things that Deadpool uses going back in time for is to shoot Ryan Reynolds in the back of the head as he's about ready to submit the Green Lantern.
Oh, the credit sequence is one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
It was incredible. I loved that. He's just so on. That's why the level of respect for Ryan Reynolds is that much higher because knowing that he was a part of writing this,
Yeah.
and that he was just a part of shitting on himself and everybody involved in this movie is just so great. Like it was, I would argue that they took it to an extent where it was predictable, but it was I loved it. Like even though you knew it was coming, it still made you laugh.
I think the joke, or one of them at least, that had me going, wow, that's pretty I didn't even think about that. When he points out that, and I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, I'm not a fan of Frozen. I've watched it a couple times. I'm like, I just don't get it. I think Tangled is way better. So when he points out the fact that, do you want to build a snowman is a ripoff of Papa Can You Hear Me? I was like, holy shit, it is. How did I never
That was like a mind blown moment.
I was sitting there, I was like, oh my god, okay, this movie just went up a level. It would be great.
And they even show like a clip of that movie just to like hammer home that joke later. It's great.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, that's exactly what the fuck it is. And then they keep referring Dupinder, who of course was the taxi driver. He keeps referring to him and Wade's relationship to Tom Cruise and Kirsten Dunst from Interview with the Vampire.
That was incredible.
I just went, that's such a random reference, but it does make sense weirdly for what you set up, and I just had.
It's like you don't even have a superpower. What would your superpower be? And he's like, courage.
I was like, what? Like, this is insane. Yeah. But that had me just dying, and then now we're just going through gags, but
there's so many we could go on and on too.
There's it's so many.
Last one I'll throw out is when Deadpool has his basic instinct moment. You see baby dick. I went, oh boy.
He has the baby legs. Oh my god.
Yeah, I was just like, all right.
Oh dude, and there was one part when he makes fun of everything. He makes fun of X-Men. He makes fun of Deadpool itself. He makes fun of the DC universe. He makes a reference to, he's like, without my powers, if I don't have a bow, I'm basically Hawkeye. Like
had me. I was like, oh, poor Hawkeye.
He nobody was safe in the comic book universe. But I remember one time, I forget exactly what it was, and remind me if you remember. But he makes a comment, and we talked about this in our Batman v Superman review. But he was like, "Oh yeah, I was gonna fight this guy, but it turned out our mother's name was both Martha, so we didn't."
Dude, I was
dying in my chair, dying.
Yeah, that made me really happy. Because I remember we talked about that and how much of a what the fuck.
Yeah, I was like, wait, that's why they're cool with each other now.
Yeah, so the fact that the movie immediately, I was like, oh. And one of the harder laughs I got is when he's trying to, I think he's talking to, he's trying to talk to Juggernaut, and he pulls a Black Widow of the Hulk. He says, "Sun's getting real low, big guy." I was like, oh, that's fucking amazing. I was like, okay, well done, movie. So
these movies are ones that you almost like have to watch over again because there's so many gags and jokes running throughout that it's easy to miss them. But that just gives it the quality of these, is that it's just one hit after another. It's just he's on constantly. So one thing I'm curious about is, what did you think about his? So they took kind of his powers. They tested him to kind of the upteenth level to see what Deadpool could withstand, essentially.
Yeah.
And the answer is basically everything. Is number one? Is that the way the comics predict it or depict it?
Yeah.
And two, what did you guys think about that?
So basically, in the comics, you pretty much have to keep. It's the same thing with Wolverine, because you have to keep Wolverine basically separated from his body to kill him, essentially. And so that whole concept. By the way, they make fun of Logan in this, and that had me, dude. And I love Logan. That was one of my favorite movies of last year, and even I just went, okay, well done, movie. That had me just laughing. But yeah, basically, you have to keep Deadpool separate from himself because he's essentially invincible. So yes, that is comic book accurate. Yeah,
I was like, when they blew him up, when he blew himself up, and his head is decapitated. Right. And then they gather up all his parts, and he just kind of fuses back together. I was just like, that was my first thought. Is like, I'm not super familiar with the comics. I'm like, has that ever happened in the comics? And I was like, I'm sure it has.
Yeah, no, it definitely has multiple times. So that's.
So I was like, I mean, that's cool. It's just funny.
Because it seemed like, yeah, oh, for sure. And it's all part of the shtick. And this just seemed like the first one they didn't quite stretch the boundaries like that. It was more like him getting shot, or they chopped his arm off or whatever, or like body parts, but him being dismembered. That's why when within the first 5 or 10 minutes of this movie, you see him kill himself, and he kind of goes to explain why and how he got there. And I was just like trying to figure out if there's a possible, like, if that was it, or if like this was truly like how his character was. So that was part of it for me, was figuring out what his superpowers were. I mean, aside from his ninja skills and regeneration.
So we had so one thing I was actually disappointed by. I wanted to see more Negasonic Teenage Warhead. To be honest, I was like, that's kind of a bummer that she kind of took a back seat. X-Force, by the way, when they're introduced, Peter got a couple really great lines. Like, so
one of my favorite characters.
So in the trailer, so honestly, I'm no joking aside, I would totally watch this Peter spinoff. I was like, if they could, just the way he just like, oh yeah, I just saw the ad. And he's just like, you're in. And I was like, cool.
Yeah, because doesn't he? Spoiler alert! Doesn't he come back in time and save him?
Yeah, he does. Thank
God.
God.
Oh, dude, I want to see more Peter. 100%.
Yeah,
he keeps calling him like other names too.
Yeah, like I love he goes something like, oh man, I can't believe you got killed. I'll never forget Paul. And Domino's like, Peter. Yeah. I was like, God damn it.
Yeah, she was great too. I'm sure you're gonna talk about her, but I love Domino from good old Atlanta.
Yeah, so
Zazie Beetz.
Yeah, so me and Scott have talked about her. I told Scott, like, I was like, dude, I would ask that woman out in a minute. She's amazing, and she's great on Atlanta, and
she can rock a afro too.
Dude, she can, and I was like, and she's just fantastic in it. And again, comic book accurate. I love the fight they have about is like a superpower, and he's like, let's just meet in the middle. Let's just meet in the middle and say it's not. Like it is.
And that was the best too. That just her superpower being luck, and like I looked at, I wasn't familiar with Domino at all. And I looked up Domino and was like, oh yeah, she was in X-Force comics and stuff. And but the way they portrayed her power initially, when she's just like, all the cars are like flying, she's like completely, skating through with nothing happening to her. I'm like, oh yeah, luck is actually a pretty good superpower.
It was great is as she's doing all this stuff, Deadpool just yelling at her like, it's definitely not cinematic, as his car like barely misses her head. I went, God damn it. I was like, oh movie, you are pretty great. So X-Force honestly is just one giant gag. And while the gag is funny, I was kind of bummed out because I want, like, Terry Crews finally gets some superhero movie and he's killed off. I went, God damn it. It does lead to a hilarious Brad Pitt cameo that I went, oh my god, was that fucking Brad Pitt who as the Vanisher?
Yeah.
Which I went, okay, cool. like that's what we're doing here. But Domino really gets to shine. I think the thing that caught me the most off guard in this movie is that we got Juggernaut in this. I went, oh. Yeah. I was like, that is, and in a good way too, because I don't know how, but it dodged the marketing and everything, and yeah there was.
I couldn't, like, when they were talking about, like, when they were in the prison and he was just like, he's like served up in a big steaming pile of foreshadowing or whatever he said. Right. Which was incredible. I was trying to rack my brain. I was like, who's in there? And I couldn't think. I was like, it's not the Hulk, obviously. And I couldn't think of Juggernaut. But so, like, when it was Juggernaut, I was like, oh shit, that's cool.
Yeah, and they actually used Juggernaut way better in here than they did in X-Men 3, which I know it's not hard to do.
What? Vinnie Jones?
Yeah, just, oh, goddamn.
I'm the Juggernaut, bitch.
Yeah, fucking horrible.
Yeah. But, he looked awful. I rewatched that clip after seeing that. I was like, I like the way the Juggernaut looked in this movie. And I rewatched the scene where he's, like, running through the walls chasing Ellen Page. And I was like, God, that fucking movie was cheesy.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say too is that Negasonic Teenage Warhead, she has a girlfriend in this movie, but it's not done like in that tantalizing like, oh yeah, it's fucking hot sort of way. It's like, oh yeah, it's my girlfriend.
Yeah,
and
she was adorable. Deadpool loved her.
Yeah, and like the one person outside of Vanessa that Deadpool's nice to.
Bye, Deadpool. Oh, bye, Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, like he was genuinely sweet to her.
Yeah,
but he's
he
a
loved her.
but he's a dickhead to everyone else, and that just made me laugh too.
Yeah, it's
like,
the only person he legitimately likes.
Like, even the kid, he talks about constantly about how the kid probably has diabetes and shit. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
No, he only likes Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, that's the only person he likes. And then just kind of as we wrap up here, we haven't talked about him much, but Cable, by the way, even in the comics, is just not a good character. He is John Connor, and the movie acknowledges that and just kind of lets Josh Brolin do his own thing. And Cable, at his best, is in an action scene or he's kind of verbally sparring with Deadpool, and that works really well. There's a whole scene where the kid is on a convoy, and that whole action sequence, because that's where Domino like shoots a gun and then drops into the convoy. The guy goes to shoot her, gun doesn't work, using power of luck. I went, wow, and her and Cable have a cool drag out fight scene in the convoy, and that leads to Deadpool jumping in and saying "Bring it on, One-Eyed Willie," which I like as someone that doesn't even like the Goonies, I went, that's a great reference. Kind of like well done on that. But yeah, Josh Brolin I thought did a great job as Cable. He does exactly what he does in the comics. He's just so irritated by Deadpool in general. He just always just looks like he wants to shoot him, and that in itself is really funny. What do we think about? What do we think about Brolin?
I liked him. I love Josh Brolin. I think he's a great actor. I think he plays this character perfectly, like you said. You don't want Cable to be dropping like too many one-liners or trying to be funny. You want him to be like the straight man, where Deadpool is just annoying the shit out of him. And I thought that played really well. And he's just like he said, he's just he comes from the future. He's got a big ass gun and like a force shield. But it provided for some cool action scenes. What'd you think, Scott?
Yeah, definitely. I think the chemistry between them was good. You kind of needed that initial meeting where they were fighting the continual fight between them. I thought was pretty well done, and his Deadpool's constant verbal jabs at him, and just continually pissing him off. And then the baby legs him entering the room, and just like everybody entering the room and commenting on his little tiny legs. But yeah, I was interested to see how they portrayed him, and I think Josh Brolin's a great actor for that role. Definitely can play the straight man, and the chemistry between them I think worked, and hopefully it's something that they're able to continue together, because he also provided an emotional touch to this movie.
He did,
and,
yeah.
I think that even as the straight man, he was able to portray that really well, kind of leading them all to team up after this one headmaster guy. So yeah, I think Brolin nailed this one.
Yeah, no, I agree, and you're right. The kind of emotional backdrop to give his character, I went, oh, this is actually really well done. And his first initial scene, or one of his first initial scenes, where he takes his truck from these like two hillbillies, made me laugh really hard, because he just like, God damn it, I just need a car. All right, this will do, and his whole break into the prison scene was really well done too. So I'm
looking on IMDb, and it says one of those rednecks was Matt Damon.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Like it says Alan Tudyk, which you could recognize him, but it says the other one was Matt Damon.
Oh my god, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that.
Yeah, and I'm like, I did not. I mean, I think he was wearing a bunch of makeup, but if that was Matt Damon, that's hilarious.
That was the same deal with Brad Pitt. We're like, wait, was that Brad Pitt?
Yeah.
Like, those like happened so quick. That was like, I couldn't.
Yeah, he's
tell.
listed on. He's like, they have him like
hilarious.
6th billing on IMDb, which is hilarious.
Yeah, this will definitely be a movie I'll need to go. Like in the same way, I'll probably do a double feature. Maybe I'll do a triple feature on Saturday. I'll do Infinity War, Deadpool 2, and then Solo. Because I do need to watch it again. Because there's a lot of
Sounds
jokes.
like a great day.
right? Because there's a lot of jokes in this movie you're just gonna miss the first time, and and you'll go back and watch it and go, oh. There's a Fox and Friends joke in there that they stuck in. I can't remember the setup, but I went as someone who fucking hates Fox and Friends and Fox News in general.
No, that was brilliant.
I laughed really hard at that. I was like, okay, well done, movie. So as we kind of wrap up here, honestly, kind of talking about the movie, like I said, it's not as good as the first one for me, just because I think some stuff in the plot. But man, I think the jokes, and not every joke hits. There were a couple of jokes that fell a little flat for me, and I just kind of went, okay. But 90% of the jokes hit, which is way more than Life of the Party hit. So I'll give this a solid A. I really enjoyed this. Don't know if it'll make my top 10, but I this is a very worthy sequel to what the first one set up, and it does set up for a potential X-Force movie, which is apparently the direction they're going, and I'm actually curious to see what they'll do for the X-Force movie. So, Scott, your final thoughts and grades there.
Overall, I was super enjoyable from start to finish, even through the credits, even past the credits, just staying the entire time to not have anything at the very end. It was fun, and you're there to see Deadpool, you're there to see Ryan Reynolds break the fourth wall and do things you don't normally see, not only in the movie, but in a superhero movie. But you still get action, and you still get emotion, and you still get character development. You get new characters with X-Force. I thought that whole side deal was hilarious, and they just have so many gags, and I don't know. Ryan Reynolds is great. Like that's the only thing coming out of this that wasn't continually in my head. Was like he continues to kill it with this series, and I can't wait to see what happens next with it. It was super enjoyable, laughing the entire time. I think some of my favorite parts were probably with X-Force. Come to think of it. Specifically with like Domino, I feel like when they introduced her and what her character's powers were, I was kind of skeptic, but the way they pulled it off was pretty awesome. Overall, super fun. I would give this an A.
Yeah, she also falls into an inflatable panda, which just made me laugh really hard. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, actually, as the convoy explodes. Colin, final thoughts and grades here.
Just talking about it with you guys right now, I've just had like the biggest grin on my face, like just remembering all of these jokes, and like it's rare that I'm like sitting in a theater just like laughing out loud like by myself.
Yeah.
And I was just like having the best time. I was just having the best time watching this. The plot, like I just thought it was good enough where I was just like, it kept the movie moving along, where I just got like another funny interaction, another, breaking the fourth wall, the movie making fun of itself, making fun of what was going on, making fun of other comic book movies that have done similar things. Just the whole time I was just entertained to like the peak of what I could have asked for. Like the whole time I was thinking like, this is A plus material the whole time. And then right when it got to the credits and he walks out as the old Deadpool and he's going back in time and it's playing Cher back in time throughout that whole thing, and he takes his gun, he shoots himself as the old Deadpool, then he shoots himself reading the Green Lantern script, and it just goes, that whole thing. Right then I was just like, fuck it, this is a fan-fucking-tastic. So this is a fan-fucking-tastic for me. It's probably going on the list. I would say I'd be a shock if Deadpool 2 doesn't make the list. So I was shocked that I felt that way, but right when that credit sequence hit, I knew my grade. So that's where I'm at.
I'll say I had this at a B plus for most of it, But then that end credit scene really did elevate it for me. I went, okay, this is a solid A. And they had an interview with like Ryan Reynolds and the writers, and apparently, I think the interesting question moving forward is going to be what happens now with the X-Men movies, because they said that's canon. So now I go, well, did that change things for Logan? Did that change things for X? Like, I'm very curious how they're going to kind of moving forward address that, because now it seems like the terrible X-Men Origins movie never happened, or maybe there's some questions definitely left by the movie that I'm curious like how they'll address them. So, but yeah, you need to go see Deadpool 2 if you haven't. It's an absolute blast. Oh god, I just had another joke that they made. I'm totally blanking on it. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. For those of you who are comic book nerds, in X Force, Deadpool's costume is often with X Force is affiliated with being all gray. And there's a really clever way they make his costume all gray that I went, you know what, that was a clever little, like comic book little Easter egg that they threw in there. So I really appreciated the way they incorporated a lot of that in this movie. So, guys, let us know what you thought. Have you seen Deadpool 2 yet? Follow us here on SoundCloud, Podbean, iTunes, and Google Music at The Real Pineapple. You go ahead and like us on Facebook at The Real Pineapple. You can follow Colin on Twitter at
The Real O'Neill.
You can follow Scott on Twitter at
Name the first.
You can follow yours truly on the Twitter at jhunter Real Pineapple. Guys, thank you so much for listening. We'll have reviews up this weekend for Solo, which, oh god, I'm nervous about that. I'm a little scared. I hope it's good.
I'm never scared for Star Wars.
I know you're not, sweetie. But guys, thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Peace.